from New York City, America's accountant, Dan Geltrude. Dan, thank you so much for joining me. So Dan, I kind of see that there's good points on both sides of this argument, but I'll let you weigh in and let us know what you think.
Well, mark this date down, Steph, December 20th. I am in agreement with both AOC and Elizabeth Warren. I never thought that would be possible, but I agree with them from the standpoint of members of Congress should not be permitted to be investing in individual stocks. And the reason is quite clear. They have access to inside information to some extent. They know laws that are brewing. They know what is happening behind the scenes. For them to be able, or their spouses to be able to participate in investing in those stocks based upon information they've gained only because they're a member of Congress just shouldn't be. Now, that doesn't mean they can't invest at all. I mean, AOC actually, again, was right. She said, look, Congress should be, members of Congress should be able to invest in things like indexed funds. So you're investing in a group of stocks as opposed to one individual stock where, again, information can really benefit you greatly where the general public would not be able to do the same thing.
Yeah, and a lot of us always question a lot of these lawmakers. They take office and they come in with very little money, but then they leave with a lot of money. And if you look at their salaries, they're making $170,000 a year, $200,000 a year. So a lot of people wonder where all the millions come from. And yeah, I mean, stuff like this makes you raise your eyebrow, especially when they're not disclosing this information on time. They're breaking the law and breaking the rules.
Well, that's another issue, right? So they set up this act in which you need to disclose your investments, and then they don't do that. And where's the consequences? Like everything else we see in society, if there's not going to be consequences, people are going to continue to push the envelope. So we have situations here where clearly there are members of Congress that are benefiting, presumably, from their investments in stocks. And why wouldn't they want to disclose that? It seems to me that it's probably because they had some information that gave them an advantage and they don't want to be subject to the scrutiny, so they don't comply. And then again, what do we do about it? If the answer is nothing, then they're going to continue to do the same thing.
And then you got to love House Speaker Nancy Pelosi playing dumb as if this is like the first time she's heard of it. This debate has been going on for a long time.
Well, how about Speaker Pelosi playing the capitalist all of a sudden? I mean, when have you seen that before? And not only that, when you saw her response, she reacted immediately. There was no hesitation when asked about whether members of Congress should be able to or should be precluded from investing in stocks. Immediately, she said no. When do politicians answer with such a definition like that? Very rarely. So obviously, she's a multimillionaire along with her husband. She's protecting her personal interests. We could understand that, but of course, the hypocrisy in Congress just takes it to the next level.
And House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is a very, very wealthy woman. Their family, a lot of money over there. Now, I want to ask you about this. So Kraft is paying people to not make cheesecake this holiday season because of cream cheese shortages. I've never heard of something like this happening before. Obviously, there are a lot of shortages, and that includes cream cheese.
Well, this goes back to you don't miss something until you don't have it anymore. And apparently, cream cheese is something that goes into a lot of products that we may not realize. Now, the obvious may be that we spread it on a bagel or we make cakes with it. But with that said, obviously, with such a shortage and people or Kraft having to incentivize people not to use cream cheese, well, that says it all. So if they're willing to pay people not to use their product, I mean, we've certainly turned the corner in the shortages we're experiencing.
Yeah, they might be doing this too also for promotion because we're talking about it and it's probably what they wanted. But they were saying that they were going to give some 18,000 people a $20 reimbursement for buying different desserts that don't involve cream cheese. But, you know, I love cheesecake. I'm wondering, I think we're going to pass on this $20 reimbursement. We're probably still going to do cheesecake on Christmas.
I don't blame you. I mean, you can't buy me off with 20 bucks either. So I'm with you on that one, Steph. But again, are they also trying to create a feeling of scarcity? And when people feel like, oh, there's not enough cream cheese, I better go out and buy as much cream cheese as I possibly can. So
Yeah.
we need our cheesecake, Steph, and good for us that we're not buying it into any of this scarcity.
Yeah, and it sounds like a cute story and a kind of a joke, but if you really look at the big picture here, this is America. We shouldn't have cream cheese shortages, and this all has to do with the supply chain crisis, and it's still the truck driver shortage that we're dealing with, and Biden's plan apparently is being criticized because they're saying it's not really actually going to address the root problem.
Yeah, what Joe Biden has really addressed here is to say, how do we get or attract more truck drivers? So let's create an environment where perhaps we can take down some regulations, put an apprenticeship program in place, do those types of things. But when you have truck drivers already, you need to make sure that you hold on to them. So what they're not addressing is, how do you incentivize truck drivers not to leave their profession? And of course, that goes back to paying them more. Now we go into this circuitous problem of paying truck drivers more, and we need them, and perhaps they deserve more, but ultimately that additional cost is going to get passed on to the consumers, which is all of us. So it really goes back to, how are we going to stop this inflation from really getting away from us? Well, it's going to take more than just some quick answer. This really needs time to be resolved and worked through.
Absolutely. And they haven't really given us a solid plan. I will say the Build Back Better getting rejected thanks to Manchin, that's helpful because, the more that they print and spend and everything else, that just adds to our inflation problem. So we'll see what they come up with next. Well, Dan, we're going to leave it here. Thank you.
Thanks, Steph.
Of course. Coming up next, Governor